driving your car and you get into a habit. Okay, let me tell you what prompted this, and then Greg Gumbel will be on the phone. We'll talk to him.
Humble Gumble.
The humble Gumbel. The successful Gumbel.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew like 2 or 3 years ago Brian Gumbel would be a loser and Greg would be a winner?
He must dance his way out of bed every day.
Yeah. So we were having this discussion because, like, and it's really true. This is about the media. Like, Baba Booey drives in to work, you know, same time every day. He's in a habit. And he listens to the all-news station when he walks in. So when you were listening to the all-news station, like, you know, at the top of the hour, like on WINS here in New York, at the top of the hour, they always have headlines. Always. You can rely on it.
The main stuff.
Right. Then they have the weather, and then they do sports headlines. So Baba Booey wakes up this morning, and he wants to hear
Baba Booey
sports headlines because he wants to know if the Mets won or not.
Had an important game last night in San Diego, started at 10:30.
Okay, and you also want to know if McGuire hit home runs.
Yeah.
You want to know, you want everything. Right. Okay. So he tunes in, top of the hour, to hear everything. And what are they doing? They preempt all their top of the hour usual stuff for the plane crash, the Swiss plane crash. And he's like, okay, and you said what?
I said, hey, I'm sorry that the plane crashed.
Right.
I'm sorry that people are dead. But it's, you know, it's not the biggest story in the world. And I really want to know if the Mets won. And they could have done that as a headline, done their weather and sports, and come back and done the story.
Right.
Because it would have been their lead story.
And I agree with you. I believe that the all-news station, like, while a plane crash is a horrible story and everything, it's not important enough to preempt your regular programming because you still want to know about you. In other words, it doesn't affect you, Gary Delabate, or me, all that much. I mean, this plane crashes all the time.
In fact, I was being even a little bit more callous than that. If you think of a New York listener, they said there were only 100 people on that plane who started in New York.
Right.
And the mayor figured out maybe 3/4 of them might have been New Yorkers.
Right.
So you're talking to 75 families.
Right.
You're skipping what you usually do for your whole audience to basically give news to 75 families.
Yeah, I'm thinking that only if the president was assassinated, maybe then they should blow off their regular format.
But again, I got weirded out because Fred started accusing me of being callous.
Yeah, I know, because it's a cold thing to say.
But Fred also isn't a sports fan.
But forget about it. If you're just
you said two things that are incorrect.
Yeah, but if you're a guy who's used to getting into sports,
Howard, how many games?
How many times can I hear that a plane crashed? I mean, what am I going to do with that?
I've got a plane crash.
And I know it's breaking news and everything, but so break the news after you do the sports.
That's insane.
Why?
Right.
Why?
You could find that information. You have that little Seiko
No, I
wristwatch,
don't.
don't you?
I listen.
Do you have that Seiko wristwatch?
No.
But I'm saying if you're missing the point.
I want to go elsewhere.
If you're a news radio station.
So for one day you can't live without that information.
I wanted to know it today.
For one day
he's missing the point.
You can't come into work
he's missing
and
the
pick
point.
up a newspaper.
He's missing the point.
I didn't want to wait till I got it to work. I wanted to know.
Right. And from the point of view of the radio station, they should stick to their format.
I agree.
In 3 minutes, they'll be back to the plane crash
and they don't have to do the whole
story. They don't have to do the whole story.
Let me propose this one
They can say a plane crash. We'll get back to live coverage in a minute.
That's what they usually do.
Right.
That's what the headline would be.
The plane crash isn't a big enough story to go break. To break away from regular sports and stuff like that.
Because there was no news.
Because they're sending their audience to another radio station.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You say that the plane story or whatever is not that important.
No, I didn't say that. It's an important story. But it's not important enough.
It doesn't change his life, right?
Right.
It doesn't change his life, right? How does the information about a baseball game change your life?
Don't tell me what to care about. What not to care about.
No, he's missing the point. Again,
I'm not missing the point.
You missed the cat point yesterday, and you're missing this. Yeah, go ahead.
Although it's really sad about the plane crash, I was on another news station listening, and I was getting mad because I couldn't hear the traffic report. And they were just doing,
they should still stick to format.
That's more important.
While that's
that
big
affects
news,
your life.
No, while it's big news, Fred, you have to still service your listeners if that's what they depend on the radio station for.
Fred, let me tell you something.
It's like, okay, you know when when a rock star dies, even.
Right.
Radio station has its regular format. Let's say it's successful.
But to say
you don't hear the black radio station start playing John Lennon
every day.
No, we have plane crashes. We have plane crashes all the time.
But why
do I want to hear?
You care about a home run.
Why do I want to hear our coverage?
The news station I was listening to was giving out the phone number for families of the victims, and here's how many families.
Yeah, and excuse me something for 1 second here.
Well, that's important.
The Russian economy, is just as important.
That's
people
probably more
dying
important than the Mets game.
People dying, in a war.
Stock market crash affects more
Yeah,
people.
more important.
But they don't interrupt your entire format.
Can I make one more point, Howard? You're
Yeah.
right. They don't interrupt Fred. They broke format.
It's a
hold on, let me
friggin'
finish
Mets
this
game,
sentence.
Gary.
They broke
No,
format.
that's not the
Stupid
point.
baseball
I'm going
game.
to make a point.
Yeah, but the point is, if he wants
Make your point.
sports,
It's
Here's my point.
you could get back to the airline crash in 3 minutes.
Just say the Mets
But here's,
won.
but
He hit
Howard,
the home run.
here's the
Howard,
biggest
you know
point.
what that's like?
Stop.
Howard, you know what
Here's
that's
the big
like?
point.
Hold on,
Freddie,
one
let me make my point.
No, I'll let you make your point after I make my point.
I'm going to make my point.
Screw you.
I want to.
Yeah, well, go ahead. Say it. No, go ahead.
It's my point negates everything.
What was that movie? What was that movie that, how Private Parts, right?
Right.
You're doing the thing, if I'm not mistaken, there was a thing where you were going like, my grandmother's dead, Cleveland 5,
Right.
that's 1 or
Right.
something like
It's
that.
making a joke.
Right.
Right.
You're making a joke.
Right.
I mean, that to me is the
But
same
people
thing.
don't
It's
go
like,
to
it's a break
Howard.
in the
What
middle
is
of
he
a
talking
tragedy.
about?
That's the worst argument in the history of man.
Fred makes no sense.
That's
No,
why
I'm just
I
saying
was arguing with
it's
him
the
yesterday.
I know.
absurdity.
Gary, did they give traffic on your
Howard,
news
here's
station?
the absurdity of
The
the
greatest
whole
thing so far
They
was
broke-
Fred not
No,
knowing.
when is a story important enough?
Make this point.
Go ahead. All right, go ahead. Make your point.
They broke format for that 5 minutes, right?
Right.
By 5 after 5, they were on to other stories. Do you know what I mean? It was like
Right.
It wasn't even like it had to be their whole half hour.
Right. They should have done their top of the hour
Format.
format
As you-
because
as they
that's
usually do.
why people
So I guess those
tune in.
250 people don't matter.
But he
not a
knew they were
comparison.
dead.
He knew they were
That
dead.
is
What
the
is he going to do?
comparison.
Listen to that for an
I
hour?
couldn't know well in the headline.
That's the point.
Got
You
my
even
sports and heard the
You
story.
said, now, to use your words, that you said that I
How much does he have to hear of that story? Seriously, Fred, how much of
How
that
much
story
new
does he
news
need?
was there about
He's
that?
aware of the airline crash.
It's like a comparison. It's
You're
like,
not getting it.
It's like
It-
baseball game.
Forget it.
versus-
This is
Freddie, you
silly.
sit in
This is
front of the
silly.
TV, watch the news.
I
and care about
hate to
everything
argue
that
with him.
happens.
He's so silly sometimes.
No,
Not
that's
only,
not
you know,
silly.
But could I stop the argument for a second? And I'm just saying, what story would be that important? Maybe the president gets assassinated, but even still,
No, Gary would want.
Yeah, but
Gary
Gary's
would want
right.
last night's score.
I still say even if the president
It's
gets
like Clinton is like
assassinated,
bleeding in the middle of a floor.
Right, if there's-
I'm sorry.
if there's-
about
every bullet that went into his
No, head? if there's-
I gotta know if Martin Black got his
no, if let's say the president gets assassinated and there's breaking news. I mean, it's coming in fast and furious.
There is much new news when the president gets assassinated. Has the vice president been
Right.
notified?
Okay, so
Who's
maybe,
taking over?
maybe.
Much new news.
Maybe then you break format, but not for the plane crash. You know what I mean?
It didn't even crash in New York. Like if it was a New York story. Like
Also, because it
but I'm
didn't
saying
crash
it's just
in New York,
Imagine like if
because
it
it was only
crashed in the
250
Hudson
people
River.
involved.
Yeah.
That's a New York story. It affects the entire
Of course.
surrounding area.
Of course. All right,
Can I-
listen.
Can I ask a question? How many baseball games do the Mets play in a season?
No, but that's not the point. When you're servicing
Close to the
I'm
end.
having a radio discussion. How do you service your audience? Your audience tunes in.
Interest.
Yeah. No, you don't. Wrong. You don't serve the public interest. You serve your audience and what they're accustomed to receiving. There's no such thing as public interest.
best
There's a
thing about
reason they set up
Right.
this format.
Maybe the audience
and
is interested.
people have
Maybe
become
Gary is
accustomed
the
to it.
exception.
Here's the deal.
Of course.
I listen to the station
Oh,
every
please.
morning.
This is silly.
I know that at a minute at the ones, minute after, 11 after, I know I get the traffic. I know a quarter after and quarter 2 I get the sports. I know when to
Maybe
get
you
what I
call them to
want.
give you
And
traffic.
I depend on it.
Right.
And I
You
didn't
should
get it
call
this
them for an
morning.
apology.
Right. And it's annoying.
They didn't give you traffic either, Gary?
No traffic either.
Oh, that's important to all the commuters.
It blew up that whole thing.
Right.
Traffic,
It threw up the whole thing.
And the
What
weather
time?
as well.
So, Freddie, at least
At what time in the morning were you listening
Who
to
cares?
the traffic, John?
what? Excuse me?
At what time in the morning were you listening?
Oh, come on, Fred. This is silly.
difference does
You
it
gotta
make?
be putting me on. You got to be putting me on.
No, because I think that's crazy to compare a baseball game.
You had more
to the
leverage
death
with
of, like,
yesterday's
250
argument.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as crazy as you were with Robin yesterday,
more
this is
crazy than
worse.
that.
This is off the map.
Oh, you guys are insane.
Wait, Freddie, there's hundreds of thousands of people who need to know
You know
what
what?
parkway to take into
He's
work.
a real smart guy, but he doesn't even understand the argument.
I was going to say, not only do you know how
I
you think some people fight like a mental patient,
Yeah.
he argues like a mental patient.
Yes, I'm telling you, if I didn't take him out of Hartford, he'd be in a mental institution.
There you go.
Because one
I know
doesn't
it.
preclude the other.
Yeah.
They're
I
just
saved you.
giving you the main part of it.
Of course, even Jackie understands him.
Wait a
He's drunk.
I think what's
He's a
mental-
pothead.
I think what's mental is being upset that at 5 after 5 you can't hear a baseball game score and
No.
250 people
No.
are dead.
Hey, speaking
somewhere.
of sports,
Hey, Freddie, what are you doing for those 250 people?
right?
What am I doing for them?
Yeah.
You care about them so much.
What do I care?
He's doing
I
nothing.
care about them.
So what are you going to do?
Just, it's like, what's the difference?
He's going to listen.
Well, what are you going to do for the baseball players, Gary? You're going to send
I'm
them
going to
to
follow them and support them.
All right. Speaking of
please,
sports,
yeah,
Greg